Assalamualaikum and hello to everyone. I'm IPCME2021 Ahmad. Today I will share the content of a systematic review with the title Anxiety Performance Among Athletes in Response to Theories and a Standard Instrument. For introductions, in a sport perspective, a successful performance is determined on how skillful the athletes perceive the anxiety into great performance. For this reason, enhancing the performance in sports is a major concern for coach and athletes itself. One of the main factors that distorted the athlete's performance is anxiety. Anxiety actually is a natural human reaction to the surrounding that involves the interaction between the mind and also physical body. The association between anxiety and a performance in sports has obtained great consideration from researchers, especially in the field of sports physiology and also psychology. Sports performance depends on how the athletes perceive the anxiety during the competitions. Competitive anxiety is bounded as a tension, comprehension, feeling during the competition and its affect the athlete's feeling and lead to the worst performance. It is called as debilitative anxiety. Next, we go through to the purpose of this review. Firstly, the researcher wants to assess the background of a recent studies by focusing on an anxiety theory and anxiety assessment in athletes. Second thing is to identify the taxonomy anxiety structure as mentioned earlier. The last one is to highlight the functionals of anxiety theory, integrating with the anxiety assessment. Okay, in the parts of this literature review, the researcher focusing on these two important issues, which are anxiety theory and also anxiety assessment issue. Okay, for anxiety theory, there are listed four types of anxiety theory. The first one is inverted U hypothesis. It is a simple theory that explains the arousal performance relationship and mostly applied for competitive anxiety. According to Bugos and Lee, this theory is unable to explain the complexities of the relationship between anxiety and performance. The second anxiety theory is catastrophe. This theory developed by Fuzzy and Hardy in 1988, which showing the relationship between anxiety and performance. This theory explains the relationship between different anxiety components that give effect to the performance. Zhang in 2018 concluded that the word of catastrophe itself is difficult to recover from unless both of the anxiety components undergo extreme reductions. But the third theory is a multidimensional anxiety theory, or MAT, invented by Martin in 1990. This theory hypothesized two components of anxiety separately that both greatly influencing in measuring sports performance differently. The last theory is individual zones of optimal functions theory, IZOF, by Yuri Hanin in 1989. This IZOF theory to determine how far the individual emotional experience affected the success in certain activity. According to Fleet in 2015, IZOF does not account for the optimal performance, leads to undefined gaps between the two huge zones, and lastly overlap between zones. While for anxiety assessment instrument consists of sports anxiety scale 2, it is developed from a first sport anxiety scale for assessing competitive street anxiety, so as to provide more reliable and measure the anxiety dimensions accurately. SAS2 consists of 3 subscales and composed of 15 items equally distributed into 3 scales. Okay, for the competitive state anxiety inventory CSAI2, instrument consists of 27 items and included scales to measure the 3 components of anxiety. The competitive state anxiety inventory 2R is revised from version CSAI2. The purpose to simplify the questionnaire structure. It consists of 17 items, which is a subset of 27 items of the CSAI2 datasets. The last anxiety assessment instrument is a sports competition anxiety test CSAT or SCAT, provided by Martin in 1990. It is known as a self-report questionnaire to determine an athlete competitive trait anxiety. The scores is 4-point scales for every 15 items, divided into 2 divisions and 10 items as a main questions. This study was guided by an established guideline on conducting systematic literature review by Zhao. It was designed for rigorous systematic review for literature. Steps and summarize the typology of literature by producing the complete taxonomy of the literature. There are 4 processes, starting with the identifications of article from certain databases, followed by the screening process, which include the activity to track the duplicate article, followed the timeline, checking the suitable and abstract. Lastly, follow the journal categorize. Then the eligibility process takes place by putting some inclusion and exclusion criteria. The last process is quality appraisal to evaluate each article by the three experts for quality assessment by perform a full text reading for every single article. The expert rank the article into three quality categories according to the high, moderate, and low. Articles with high and moderate categories will be included in this review process. This is a part of the methodology explain the details on how the formulation of research question take place and is based on a PICO. PICO is a model used in an evidence-based practice to answer the research question. The acronym of PICO based on the three main concepts, namely P as a problem or population, and the author has chosen athlete for populations, performance of anxiety for interest, I, and for the context are anxiety theory and assessment instrument for CO. Alright, the information status for the articles are found from these three relevant digital databases, which are from the Web of Science, Scopus as the largest databases of literature, and a PubMed as a search engine. The identification is the first stage of finding important articles based on appropriate keyword that merely related to this research. There are three types of search string option and its different search databases. Eligibility process covering the inclusion and exclusion criteria. The researcher manually check and tracking the remaining articles based on criteria specifications. This is the details for the inclusion and exclusion criteria. And this figure 2 shows the informative taxonomy of research literature on anxiety spot performance as a result. A complete set of 33 articles were discussed on these three subcategories. They are anxiety and arousal-based, spot-based, and athlete experience-based at the upper side. The rest are showing the details on anxiety theories and also the anxiety assessment instrument. Alright, we go further to the figure 3. It shows the studies on anxiety theory. A multidimensional anxiety theory, MAT, recorded the highest theory with the 7 articles used in recently study about the anxiety athlete performance theory. While at the side, in other sides, in the figure 4, it shows the types of anxiety assessment instrument. The competitive state anxiety inventory, CSAI, recorded the highest preferable instrument used in a recent study with 15 articles over 33 selected articles. Okay, regarding from this table 3, it shows the summary result for the combinations of both anxiety theory and assessment instruments. This review emphasizes the utilizations of anxiety theory and functioning well if there is integration with assessment instrument in order to measure the anxiety level in quantifying data. Most of the findings shows a positive response to these both integrations. On the other hand, 6 out of 12 articles in these categories recorded the combinations of MAT, multidimensional anxiety theory, and CSAI2. Alright, as discussions, from 33 selected articles, the research trends are focusing on the three main categories. They are anxiety theories, anxiety assessment instrument, and the integrations of both theories and instrument. Each theory and assessment address a different limitations and have their complexity. In addition, the anxiety theory cannot cover the performance of athletes' anxiety itself, same like anxiety assessment instrument. However, the integrations between these both are aiding each other to verify the anxiety to sports performance rate to be more precise and a significant factor enhancing the sports performance. Reviewing the integrations of anxiety theory and anxiety assessment also act as a medium or functional to guide the research and enhance the future sports physiological practice. So this review showing the highest combination between MAT and also CSAI2 is the best pairing and getting more attention from researchers in this 10 years back. As for conclusion, in the work presented here, it is essential for assessing both functions of anxiety theory and anxiety assessment together. So the coach is able to arrange the strategy on cognitive and somatic training to the athletes and evaluate the anxiety level among the athletes. The functionals of an anxiety theory is getting extensively by using an anxiety assessment to step up the athlete's performance. The tested result becomes more precise as it is backed from two sets of cognitive and also somatic anxiety components. That's all from me. Thank you. Assalamualaikum.